Coming up on the LCS Preview Show, we break down the midseason moves, help you live your league fantasy, and reveal the all-pro plays from the All-Star event. Don't touch that browser. The LCS Preview Show starts right now.
And Frogger takes the tower down and takes victory for Team.
Has a huge smile on his face because they just took down Fnatic.
Millennium win the game 3-2, puts all three LCS teams back into the summer split. Vasily takes down both carries, and that's the 3-0. LMQ are in the LCS. Danger the only guy to defend. The Nexus is falling. Robert takes it down. Complexity Black make it into the LCS. 1, 2, 3, go!
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the first LCS Preview Show of the 2014 Summer Split. I'm Rivington Bism III, hanging out at the desk with Joshua Jat Leesman. Jat, how you doing today?
I'm doing very well this morning in North America, or evening for the Europeans, and I'm excited to get the Summer Split going and to see how all the roster changes are going to affect this league.
We got a lot to talk about. Before we look forward to the first week of the Summer Split, let's take one last trip down the Champs-Élysées and catch everyone up on the All-Star event that went down over in Paris. SKT T1K went a perfect 9-0 route to winning the 2014 All-Star Invitational that featured the best teams from the 5 Premier Leagues facing off in an incredible mid-season international tournament. Even though SKT T1K had struggled over in Korea since their Season 3 World Championship, FLICKR and crew proved once again that they're still one of the best teams in the world. Chat, what do you take away from the 2014 All-Star Games?
I mean, I think it was really a good time, especially the challenge games. Those things were far more entertaining than I think anyone really expected. And then also we did learn a lot about kind of the region's strength. Cloud9 really surprised me to see how well they performed on the international stage there without their shot caller. They went 3-1 in the group stages. And then, honestly, a little bit disappointed to see how Fnatic performed, being the top team in Europe, 3 splits running, to struggle so mightily. I think it was a big wake-up call to the European scene in general as they move towards the World Championship.
But while Fnatic struggled at All-Stars, they continued to dominate the European LCS, winning the Spring Split, their 3rd straight LCS title. Now for a look at Fnatic and the off-season moves meant to dethrone the 3-time season champs, I'd like to welcome Trevor Quickshot Henry to the show. How you doing, Quickshot?
I'm doing great, and it's great to have you back as well, Riv. It's good to be back in the LCS. I'm looking forward to seeing how these roster swaps have taken place and how they're going to affect the teams.
Duly noted. Before we get to the roster swaps, I do want to get your thoughts on Fnatic. Despite a turbulent spring split that saw them win 7 games in a row before losing 8 in a row, Expecting Crew still walked away with their 3rd straight European title. But then they struggled again at the All-Star game just a couple weeks ago. So standing on the brink of the 2014 Summer Split, how do you think they look heading into the second half of the season?
You know, even though Fnatic had tough times during the split, they managed to pull the team together and find a level of, performance, teamwork to back up their extremely talented individual play. I think they dig deep around playoffs, and they always find just that extra edge to oust their European opposition. I think it's extremely hard to doubt Fnatic when you consider how they perform in the LCS. They've yet to truly disappoint their fans when it matters in the playoffs, and my concern for the team stems from their inconsistent ability, I think, against non-LCS teams. Consider how weak Fnatic looked during the IEM World Championships or at All-Star just recently, and you compare that to the playoff team that has dominated Europe for the last 18 months, and it's just a stark contrast in level, in performance, and in ability. So I feel that Fnatic can continue their current level of play to perform well here at home, but they need to change something, and drastically, if they ever want to be truly relevant on the international stage.
All right, Quickshot. Fair warning here. I am going to put you on the spot and ask you whether or not they will four-peat, but not yet. Instead, right now, I want to ask the fans whether or not they think Fnatic will win their 4th straight LCS title. Hit us up on Twitter, @LOL Esports, and use the hashtag FnaticForTheWin if you think they'll take the summer playoffs, or Fnatic Falls if you think they'll come up short for the first time in LCS history. Now let's shift our attention away from the kings of the LCS to the teams that will be looking to dethrone Fnatic and their mid-season roster changes, starting with another legendary European team, Gambit. Earlier this month, star mid laner Alex Ish announced he was leaving Gambit for various reasons that included excessive travel, lack of family time, loss of motivation and poor results. Starting in his place for at least the first week of the LCS is former Denial mid laner Nick. Now, quick shot, did Alex's move surprise you, and do you think Gambit will be a better team without the former All-Star?
You know, talking about Alex leaving, I don't truthfully think I was surprised, and I don't think many people were. Gambit as a whole, they've been on a downswing since last year Worlds. They never really stood out as a dominant or scary during the spring splits. And, you know, I feel that Alex was a very large part of Gambit when they were winning their games. And without his influence, I don't know what to expect from the team. So let's look at some of the possibilities. Now, the shock of losing their mid laner and their front man may inspire the rest of the team to look inwards, to look to improve their own game and add the element of adding new LCS talents in the form of Nick can also be a positive influence if he's hungry and if he's working hard. But my biggest concern comes from the team's ability to adapt their current play style. Simply put, they weren't keeping up last split, and they need to get up to date with the competitive standards. I also worry about their ability to communicate. Consider that Nick is Polish, and he's the first non-Russian speaking member that Gambit has ever drafted. And again, he's temporary, so if he doesn't perform, Gambit may be looking to replace him.
Right. Now, while Alex Ich's departure might have been the biggest move, the European team that has changed the most since the end of the spring split is the Copenhagen Wolves. Not only have they lost their amazing jungler, but they've replaced their AD carry Forgiven. The Wolves' new lineup will have longtime challenger Airwalks roaming in the jungle and former Denial AD carry Woolite in the bot lane. Quick shot, with 40% of the roster remade, are the Wolves a stronger team than they were at the beginning of the spring split?
Number one, I like the math, and I'm going to dodge the question because I don't know. You know, Woolite, he's got great experience. He's been at the top of the scene for a very long time, but he's not truly tested underneath the LCS lights on this stage. Airwax is another untested player on the big stage, and to my knowledge, he's also relatively new to the top of the scene, the very top. Airwax as a player, he's a selfless player. He doesn't always tax lanes. He doesn't always secure kills. And he's more of a team player than Amazing was. So we need to see if that team-oriented play will benefit the Wolves. Airwax, he's got strong mechanical ability, he plays meta champions, and the Wolves have been working with him to get him from a solo queue jungler to an LCS level jungler. So I'm interested to see how the Wolves will handle themselves without their star players. Remember, Amazing and Forgiven were instrumental in their wins last split. They were largely attributed to those two players doing well, and the Wolves are going to be hoping that their new players are at least equal in carrying power. Regardless of the individual players, though, I do want to mention that the Wolves had the best lane swaps out of all European teams. So assuming that the Wolves can imbue this knowledge and this understanding to upgrade their mid to late game play, they could counterbalance a potential loss in individual skill with an overall increase in team play. So I'm just going to summarize my thoughts and give you a TLDR. The Wolves will need to either step up the strategic play outside of the laning phase, or hope that the replacement players are on par with Amazing and Forgiven. And time will tell.
And the last moves in the European LCS that we need to hit on and talk about are Millennium perma-locking Cotton X into the jungle and former Super Hot Crew support Migza being relegated to the bench after putting together a record-breaking spring split performance. As far as Cotton X, he took over the jungle duties for Millennium in Week 10 after RNA stepped down. After helping Millennium survive the summer promotion tournament and regain their spot in the LCS, Cotton X has been rewarded with a permanent roster spot. Now for Super Hot Crew, after a hot start to the spring split, the Polish rookies cooled off and also found themselves in the summer promotion tournament. Even though they won their way back into the LCS, they'll be playing with a new support, FLICKR. Quick shot, how do you see these two moves playing out?
Okay, so you mentioned the record-breaking performance by Mixer. As you said, unfortunately, was for the most deaths in an LCS split with 128 trips back to the fountain. While that is an incredibly high number, I do actually feel that Mixer was a very strong component of the team's initiations, and he also did pretty well during the laning phase, especially at the early levels. The reason I highlight these changes is to discuss what role Super Hot Crew's new support player, FLICKR, needs to have as an absolute minimum, and he'll obviously be wanting to improve upon the weaknesses that Mixer had. FLICKR, he's a veteran of the challenger scene. He actually competed alongside the Lemon Dogs when they qualified for the LCS during the summer split last year. He has LCS stage experience. He'll be drawing upon that here today and going forward as much as possible. Moving on to Millennium and Cotton-X, they decided that his permanent spot in the team is confirmed after he was an absolute monster during the promotion tournament. And he definitely helped his team defeat the Ninjas in Pajamas. That was a surprise result. Nobody expected that at all. I do want to note that Millennium are looking better and better since Cotton-X has been the starting jungler for the team, but the rest of the players now need to step up their game if Millennium want to stand a chance at making it to Worlds.
All right, quick shot. You've dodged it long enough. Earlier I said I'd be asking you to make a prediction about whether Fnatic will be winning their 4th straight title. It's now time to get your thoughts. Who do you think will be the 2014 European LCS Summer Split winner?
I hate that you put me here because I don't know. It's a tough prediction because I haven't seen any games. I don't know who's going to go up, who's going to go down. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the number 1 and 2 teams are going to be Fnatic and Alliance. I'm expecting them to do well. Considering what we've seen from the both of them in the last few months, I think Alliance are hungrier. I think they want it more. I think they'll practice harder. And I'm calling Alliance to be the number 1 team out of Europe for the Summer Split.
All right, quick shot. That is a bold prediction. Now let's see if the fans agree with you that Fnatic's time has come or whether they think Expeke and crew will be heading to Worlds once again as the European champs. Pulling up the Twitter poll, we see that 65% actually think that Fnatic for the win is the one that's going to be taking it. How are you feeling about that, quick shot?
I don't know. It's a lot of faith. Three titles back-to-back. It's hard to doubt the public, but we got to see what happens. Super Week, 4 games. Maybe opinions will change.
It's a good super way to start it off. Thanks for taking the time to walk with us through all the mid-season changes and dropping some knowledge alts. Quick shot, good luck with the games today, and I can't wait to get the Summer Split underway.
Yeah, Nork and the rest of us, yeah. So we'll see you on the show later today.
All right, well, we won't have to wait long for the 2014 Summer Split to kick off because in about 15 minutes, Fnatic will start their run for their 4th straight LCS title as they kick off a super week's worth of LCS action and hope to take their first step down the road to another World Championship berth. SK Gaming will look for revenge for their spring playoff loss when they take on Reckless and the Spring Split champs. While finishing up our Day 1 coverage, it's the first game for Gambit without Alex each on their roster when they battle Overpow and Roccat. Then coming up on Wednesday, we've got 6 more games coming your way, starting with Gambit playing their 2nd game without Alex on the roster when they take on SK Gaming. With the Spring Split MVP Froggen and his alliance taking on Expeke and Fnatic to finish the 2nd day's coverage. Then coming up on Thursday, we end the first week of the European Summer Split with 5 more matches. And remember, all 3 days of the Super Week kick off at 1700 EST, 8 a.m. Pacific Time. Now let's turn our attention to another league that's kicking off today, Fantasy League Championship Series. If you've never played Fantasy before, don't worry. The people over at fantasy.lolesports.com have got you covered. Before you build your own LCS team and check out the articles and stats that will help you dominate your friends in the draft and throughout the season.
Yeah, and now because we want our viewers to finish first in their leagues, we're going to do an LCS Preview Show Fantasy Knowledge Buff. So we're going to look at the top performers from the spring, the projected leaders for the summer, and then a couple of sleeper picks.
Everybody's going to want to go back and do them all now.
Yeah.
Let's start with the top performers from the Spring Split. I know we didn't have the LCS Fantasy way back then, but if we had, here's who would have come out on top based on the standard point system. Wild Turtle would have been your fantasy points champion, while Sneaky and Meteos would have actually finished 2nd to Team Solo Mid, for once.
Yeah, the top scoring European LCS pro during the spring was actually Reckless, with his team at Expeke coming in just ahead of the MVP of the European LCS, Froggen. But that is the past, and looking into the future gets a little more tricky. Take last split, for example. Who would have guessed Fnatic would go on an epic losing streak, or that the Season 3 World Championship participants, XGG, would get relegated? Everything's up in the air.
Exactly. That being said, if the teams perform like experts think they will, the top 10 fantasy players at the end of the 2014 Summer Split should look something like this. Odds are Fnatic will play better than they did at All-Stars and perform more like the team that started out the spring with 7 wins and ended the split with another LCS title. And if that happens, you can expect Reckless and Expeke to rack up a ton of fantasy points per game.
But over here in North America, most people expect Cloud9 to continue their championship caliber play, which means Sneaky and High will probably earn their fair share of fantasy love. And according to the experts, the biggest jumper on the list from the spring to the summer split will be Froggen. He had a beastly second half of the spring and carried his team from almost worst to nearly first place. And if he keeps playing that strong, he'll be near the top of the fantasy points table. On the flip side, while Turtle's stock, it slipped a little with change in support. There will be a learning period, losing X Special, who was an all-league support, to a new guy in Gleep.
All right, now the top 10 projected players all seem like pretty safe bets, but if you're more of a flash over the wall into a 1v5 kind of player, then Chat has a couple sleeper picks for you. And while they're a little lower on the projected points list, they probably should be a lot higher on your draft board.
Yeah, the first sleeper I want to talk about is actually amazing. If you look at the current preseason ranking, he's the 5th rated jungler and 39th overall pick. And you consider that the odd one accumulated the 4th highest point total in the entire LCS for junglers despite his mechanics slipping. It's reasonable to think that Amazing, with his mechanics and being on TSM, has a shot at cracking the top 10 players overall and could definitely be worth a pick earlier than number 39. Also, another jungler to keep your eyes on is another North American guy who had roster changes around him in Crumbs. He's actually projected to rack up the 9th highest point total for a jungler. But with his lanes getting buffed like that, with Zion, Spartan, and Shifter joining, Crumbs should be able to pick and choose where he wants to attack instead of constantly having to play defense. And that should translate into some huge stats. And another jungler I want to talk about is actually going to be Airwax, because the Copenhagen Wolves haven't lived up to expectations so far in the LCS, but one thing they have done is they found talent, especially in their jungle. Their last 2 junglers were Shook and Amazing. They've put up some big numbers before departing to other squads, so their jungle pool is just good at finding them. And if the jungle pool is thin in your fantasy league, definitely pick up that Copenhagen Wolves jungler with a late pick because he'll have value. And the same could be said about their AD carry in Woolite, because just like the jungle, the Wolves have an eye for picking up good AD carries. Reckless was on Copenhagen Wolves, as well as Forgiven, who was a monster last year, and Woolite looked good in the Challenger Series. So just like Airwalks, Woolite is worth a late round pick. And AD carries, with the last final sleeper pick I have, it's got to be Cop from Curse. He had a major upgraded support with the addition of X Special. And the last time that Cop had an all-star caliber support, he also led the LCS in kills for AD carries. So while Reckless, Doublelift, and Wild Turtle are sure to be first or second round picks, Cop's capable of putting up similar numbers and will be available much later in most drafts. So that would allow you to address other positions where there's a deeper talent drop-off at the start.
And now I know what you're thinking. I've only got about 15 minutes before the start of the summer split. I'll never be able to get a league up and running in time. Don't worry. You'll still be able to put together a league and mastermind your own championship team before the start of week 2.
Still counts.
Still counts. Now, one of the teams that's sure to be a high pick in anyone's fantasy draft is the North American squad that won their 2nd consecutive LCS title. That's Cloud9. Since they first spawned in the LCS stage, Cloud9 has been nearly perfect, winning 88% of their games here in North America. That's 49 wins and only 7 losses. Jat, is Cloud9 the best team that North America has ever seen?
I think it's pretty hard to argue against. One of the reasons for their success is consistency. They're the only team actually in the entire LCS that has started the same roster for every LCS game they've played. And they're one of 2 NALCS teams that will have the same roster they used during the spring split. And for Cloud9 fans, the best part is they're only getting better. Sneaky stepped up his game hugely last split and was statistically the best AD carry in North America during the spring. Plus, Balls has developed into arguably the best top laner in North America. Many are saying it's not even an argument anymore that he is the best. And not only that, but Cloud9 went to All-Stars and then beat Fnatic with a substitute. They also beat TPA, OMG. That 3-in-1 group stage was very impressive. All this put together means that once again this split, they are the team to beat in North America.
And now that you've heard what Jat has to say, we want to hear what you think. Hit us up on Twitter and let us know if you think Cloud9 will add to their incredible record with another summer split title. If you think they'll make it 3 first-place finishes in a row, use the hashtag C9threepeat. But for Reginald and all the others out there that think C9's reign is over, use the hashtag C9theend. We'll be checking in with results later in the show. And speaking of the end, 2 of the original North American LCS squads saw their time in the league come to an end during the summer promotion tournament. Team Coast, formerly known as GGU, and XDG, formerly Vulcan, both failed to meet the challenge of Complexity and LMQ respectively. And now we only have 4 original NALCS teams left in the league, with Team Solo Mid, Counterlogic Gaming, Dignitas, and Curse.
Funny it's those 4 teams, but it kind of only felt like it was a matter of time for Team Coast, unfortunately, because even though their solo laners have gotten a lot of praise and actually got picked up by Dignitas, the team itself could never really turn those solo lane strengths into team victories. They've been struggling for a long time. Other than their playoff run at the end of the 2013 spring split, which is over a year ago, they haven't been able to win consistently. And then unlike the spring promotion tournament, this time around they were not able to win their way back in the league. And then you look at XDG, on one hand, is just like the most epic slide in LCS history. Less than a year ago, they were the second best team in North America. They had in Cloud9 2 of their 3 losses of the split on their way to Worlds. But after a lackluster showing during the group stages at Worlds, they made those ill-fated roster changes in their lineup. They moved the most improved player in North America to the jungle, Zuna, the other way. And then they tried to swap him back. And it just did not work out for them. It was disastrous. XGG, they finished last in the LCS before being dispatched by LMQ 3-0 in the promotion tournament. It was really a tragic end for a team that showed so much promise last year.
Now, the 2 teams that beat Coast and XCG will be making their LCS debuts this Friday. LMQ dominated the Challenger Series, winning the Spring Series 1 and 2 titles before locking down the overall Spring Series championship. Complexity, on the other hand, finished 3rd in the Challenger Series, even though they were the most dominant team in the league, not named LMQ.
And LMQ has received a ton of hype, and rightfully so, because they obliterated their challenger competition. But now the question becomes, can they maintain that level of success against LCS quality teams? Vasily, their AD carry, gets a lot of love from the LCS community. Xpecial and Doublelift have both sung his praises pretty loudly. Their mid laner, Xiaowei Zhao, puts up incredible CS numbers and equally impressive KDA stats. And a lot of people expect LMQ to finish in the top half of the standings, or maybe even higher.
Well, although players on LMQ might be unfamiliar to fans who haven't been keeping up with the Challenger Series, Complexity has several guys that have played on the LCS stage before.
Yeah, and this is the second time the Complexity has actually had a team in the LCS. Both of those teams have actually contained Prawley at some point. Complexity was a part of last season's Spring Split before being defeated in the Summer Promotion Tournament by Quantic, which is the team that we all know now as Cloud9, so you can't really blame them for losing out on that series. And as far as Prawley goes, he has always had a deep champion pool and had great success in the promotion tournament against Shifters. So Complexity's top laner, Westrice, is also another guy we need to talk about because he had a long journey to the LCS. He competed in the Season 1 World Championship and now makes his return to premier status in North America. It's been a while for him.
Yeah, it really has. Good to see him back on top. Works out. Now, when you add the 10 new players on Complexity and LMQ to the 3 new players on the other NALCS teams, and then factor in the 3 players who are swapping jerseys, that means out of the 40 NALCS starters, 16 of them will be different than they were at the start of the Spring Split. That's 40% of the league that's changed. Let's start our analysis of the additions and subtractions in the NALCS with the team that was in first place for most of the Spring Split, Team Solo Mid. Gone are longtime TSM members Odd1 and Xpecial, and replacing them are former Copenhagen Wolves jungler Amazing and challenger support Glebe, the support formerly known as Glebe Glarblu. Do these changes make Team Solo Mid capable of challenging a team like Cloud9 for the Summer Split title?
It's going to be really hard to see just because it is so much change, and it's more change than TSM has ever had at one time. They've always changed out one player at a time before. However, every single one of those changes has resulted in an improved Team Solo Mid, so you can't really doubt their decision making. But first off, let's look at the jungle change. This one was mutually agreed upon by all parties and makes the most sense. The Odd1 admitted that his mechanics were not world class, so it was the smart move to bring in such a mechanically strong jungler in Amazing. And if things go well for TSM, they're not actually losing the Odd1, they're gaining him as a coach. The change of support, however, is a little bit different. It wasn't mechanical shortcomings that led to the decision, it was actually a chemistry problem that TSM stated. And it's strange because Xpecial is coming off an all-league Spring Split, voted #1 by everyone. Well, not everyone. It was #1 over Afromu.
Right.
But Glebe is an unknown commodity to the community, and he's from most of the challenger scene. It is the most questioned decision that TSM has ever made. You add that to the fact that TSM hasn't had very much time to practice with their new team, and it could be a couple of rough weeks for TSM to start the summer. But this is what they need, and it's what they think they need to do to compete with Cloud9 and ultimately for the World Championship. So you can't question it until the end of the season.
Right. It's interesting to see Team Solo Mid pick up somebody that's not just in the LCS. It's kind of that, like you said, unknown commodity. And while Team Solo Mid parted ways with their longtime bot laner, he quickly found a new home with Curse. After starting 3 different supports as Cop's backup during the Spring Split, Curse locked up the all-league player for the summer.
And this looks like another great acquisition for Curse. Xpecial is in a line of many big-name players that Curse has actually signed over the years. They've signed St. Vicious, Voyboy, and Edward to mixed results because Curse is very willing to take a chance on players that other teams sometimes deem not worthy or just sign superstars. And this acquisition in particular has the potential to do great things for both Xpecial and Curse. Xpecial's finally on a team where no one's voice will overpower his, and he's really excited about it. So It's a lot of volatility for a team that went through 3 supports last year, but it's X Special, who is a fantastic support and a name brand.
Let's see how they do. The third team that will be starting a new roster for week 1 of the summer split is Counter Logic Gaming. In response to their top laner Nien stepping down, Monte Cristo and crew searched around the world. And funny enough, they found their new top laner in Monte's backyard of Korea. But unlike the addition of Dexter before the spring split, Seraph is a relatively untested commodity on the pro stage.
Yeah, I mean, Nien stepping down caught everyone by surprise, and it means CLG really had to scramble to find a new top laner, and they really think that they found a great one. Seraph, even though he is a little bit unknown, he only played 1 pro game in Korea. He was on Najin White Shield, who's actually in the finals right now of OGN. And he hasn't seen much playing time, but he has been deeply entrenched in that Korean pro scene. Lived in a gaming house, practiced with the Najin organization, and now that he's here in the NALCS, it looks like he's been able to communicate well with his team, and the addition has been working out very well for him. So just when you think CLG has finally lived up to their potential last split, they had a little bit more.
A little bit more. Now, despite CLG importing a Korean top laner, Team Solo Mid, adding an amazing jungler, and Curse signing an all-league support, the team that may have improved their roster the most during this mid-season hiatus was Dignitas. After finishing the spring split with a 12-16 record, their worst in the LCS so far, Dignitas swapped out their solo lanes, signing the recently relegated Zion, Spartan, and Shifter to replace Cruiser and Skara.
And this was a really smart move for Dignitas. They took the best parts of the 5th place team, added them to the best parts of the 6th place team, and they're hoping to equal a team that's good enough to go to Worlds. Their biggest weakness was in the mid lane. We saw that the temporary benching of Scar and the failed experiment with Golden Glue, they really didn't have a solution there. Now they have Shifter, a top North American mid laner. He put up tremendous numbers on a bad team. It'll be really fun to see how he does with Crumbs backing him up in the jungle. If you look at the top lane as well, Cruiser had better stats than Zion Spartan, but the numbers don't necessarily tell the whole story. Zion's a guy who draws a lot of attention from the other team, and Dignitas will benefit a lot from that top lane pressure.
All right, now that we've taken a look at the new teams and rosters, it's time for you to look into your crystal ball, Jat, and predict who will be the NALCS Summer Split winner.
I think it's pretty simple as far as the prediction here goes. A bunch of teams made a lot of changes to catch one team. That team is Cloud9, and they're still the favorites right now. I got to go with them.
All right, well, you guys have heard what Jat's highly controversial pick for the Summer Split title is. Let's see what the fans at home had to say. The Twitter poll is going to be 57% saying that Cloud9 will still take it, but that is very close.
Yeah, it's
for having 2 dominating splits.
It is a very competitive North American scene right now. All the changes are supposed to be for the better. Everyone around there is saying this is the strongest NA has ever been.
It's interesting. With all the mix-ups going on right now, I think a lot of people are figuring out which wagon to be on for the start of the split, and then there's going to be a big band after that.
There's a lot of wagons right now.
There's no trains right now. There's no trains to be riding. It's pretty great. And Game 1 of the North American LCS Summer Split might go a long way in determining whether Jat and the fans are right. NA's Super Week of Games kick off with a rematch of the Spring Split Finals as the defending champs take on the new Team Solo Mid, followed by Xpecial's Curse debut and the first professional game by LMQ.
Then on Saturday, Team Solo Mid takes on their former support as TSM battles Curse, with the new Team Dignitas getting to test their solo lanes against the Spring Split champs in Cloud9.
And then on Sunday, Week 1 of the LCS Summer Split wraps up with a battle between two of the teams most picked to be near the top of the standings when the season is done. Doublelift and Counter Logic Gaming versus Meteos and Cloud9.
All 3 days of the North American Super Week begin at noon Pacific, 9 p.m. Central European summertime.
And now over in Europe, almost 2 weeks ago, the best teams and most popular players from around the world gathered in Paris for the 2014 All-Star Games. And what resulted were a multitude of memorable moments and a ton of big plays. Here are the 5 biggest plays, or as we like to call them in Paris, Le Penta.
At number 5, Bjergsen rapidly picks up a triple kill in Earth.
He will take it down. He flashes in. That's a double kill. Now Mad Life's there. Ultimate comes through. Wild Growth is used. He gets the triple. Bjergsen, absolute beast.
And at number 4, Going gets going with the great teleport escape.
It could be the right time. Let's see how fast it is.
It's going to be Pomelo that tanks this one up, but there's a flash from Impact. He does get first blood, and he's managed to get away. Becky gets one kill back. He's going to TP out. It's going to be quick. He's got away. He's got away from it. 15 HP left for Going. It doesn't get any closer than that.
At number 3, FLICKR takes on 4 people and gets a double.
Found himself another bunch of kills. There's
That's a party, though.
Ultimate, look at that. Peke is in all sorts of trouble. Intervention was used. They finally get Faker down, but it took 3 of them.
There was 4 of them, actually. He killed 2.
Coming in at number 2, it's Piglet with the flashy moves as he outplays Meteor.
Flash over the wall. Oh, what a flash away from that one. And they just ping-pong Meteors around.
Et là, il y a Piglet. Oh! No way! No way! Ce flash!
And the number 1 play of the week is just another thing Faker does. Kill the enemy jungler and steal Bear.
Try and make the play. He's gone in. He's gone for Cyanide. He wants to try and pop him
So
down.
low!
Maybe enough. He gets Cyanide down before the Baron drops. The Baron is so low. It's going to get stolen away by Faker. This is tragic for Fnatic. What sublime play by the Season 3 World Champions.
All right, guys, that does it for the LCS Preview Show. Now let's send it over to Cologne, Germany for day 1 of the 2014 European LCS Summer Split. Thanks for watching.